Girls, we're back and we are going to talk relationships, but not just boring old relationships. We're going to dive into sex, intimacy, and what relationships mean to each and every one of us. So who wants to go first?
Oh my goodness, Bridget. I think it's really interesting. Like, I'm interested in talking to Bridget because Jo, you and I are monogamous, and that obviously works for us. And Bridget, you've got a little wider view on this, and I'm going to get a relationship psychologist to come and have a chat with us as well. But I'm interested in, where you sit on the monogamy scale and why, Bridget.
Well, I think I am on that monogamy. I can't say the word, but I'm there with myself. I mean, I've been on my own for many years, and I don't think we need another person to have that intimacy. I've been able to achieve that just in nature. When I walk down the beach, when I walk through the ngahere in bare feet, when I'm touching nature, I can actually feel the sensuality through my body. I could shut my eyes and take myself there now. I really don't think, I think, we're limited to think about sex in a certain way. And I think it's been actually taken and turned into something it's not.
Mm,
Because when we look at the sexual energy, it's all about feeling how we feel, that sensuality, and we've lost that connection with ourselves. So therefore we can't project it out and do it in a very clear,
mm,
beautiful, divine way. And so I've been scarred through life through a few relationships. One was a marriage and another was a long-term relationship. And and then I withdrew pretty much, and I needed that time to heal. But I've also, come to know myself. I know what I like. I know what deep sensuality is, and I can, you know, satisfy myself. So I don't look outside of that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'd love somebody to complement my life and to come in and to bring that beauty and that intimacy. But for me, I can get that on my own. Unless that comes in, I'm not settling. I don't need to go to a level where I need to satisfy that within myself.
Don't you think
And
there's lots of facets there? Like, I'm so intrigued because I totally agree with you on the intimacy scale. I think we mistake intimacy for sex, and they're very different. Sex is much better when you have intimacy.
Mm.
If you have intimacy within a relationship, the sex can be mind-blowing. I don't know many people who've had mind-blowing sex without intimacy. Maybe the odd person here and there. And I truly believe we have to start with ourselves. Intimacy, just getting to know ourselves, loving ourselves fully, knowing what we like, what we don't like. I think that's definitely part of it. But then I I hear a lot of fear in your voice when you talk about another person coming in and perhaps settling, because don't you look at the world and relationships, and when I deal with a lot of clients, and often their main focus is their relationship, and usually they're complaining about stuff,
mm.
or they're not satisfied within things in their relationship. And I say, who's your role model? Who are the role models that you see in the world who have what you want in a relationship? And you know what, not many of them can name people. Not many people have good role models in this world for good relationships, and
Um,
that's sad. And I think that's the world as a whole. Don't get me wrong, this is a generalization. There's always the odd person who has the most beautiful loving relationship. And I remember doing this big blog post where I went and studied a lot of relationships, and I seen what was working in relationships. And it was so beautiful to watch these people who had this beautiful soul connection. They're at a party and you see that they're going to look out for each other.
Yeah.
That's intimacy. When
mm,
you know your partner is just checking that you're okay in the midst of a big crowded room. It's not controlling. They're not keeping an eye on you. They're just making sure you're happy and you're okay. That's intimacy. Rubbing your back as you walk past in the kitchen, just go, hey, babe, that's intimacy. Do you know, I think it's our responsibility as mothers, but also as daughters, because we've got to do our own inner healing. And then we are bringing through the next generation of daughters. I want to role model some beautiful things to them, what a relationship should look like, what a relationship could look like.
Absolutely. And I'm going to get a little controversial here and say that I was part of the big ecstasy boom in London, and certainly did my fair share of it. But one of the amazing things about it was, and this I think is why they're starting to use it in psychotherapy and so successfully. And of course, it started as an antidepressant, and then it was removed from the market, and now they're bringing it back in a different way. But I think that one of the things that was so amazing about it was it showed you your target, right? And actually, most of us grew up not even knowing what the target was. We didn't know what we were aiming for. So how could we possibly find it in a partner? If we had no idea what intimacy was, we had no idea what love was, and all we learned at school was how to put a condom on a carrot and avoid getting pregnant, then how on earth are we then going to go out equipped in the world to find a partner that brings us loving connection and intimacy? It's going to be almost impossible. And so with this sort of the e-boom, if you like, one of the amazing things about it was that you discovered this sensuality of self, right? You could be standing there and just going, oh, my skin, I feel so amazing. Like, wow, I feel so amazing. And it was sort of like, oh my God, this is what we're aiming for, right? This is the sensual relationship with self. This is exactly what we are meant to be feeling. And, my daughters, I think we talked about this on the parenting one, came home in 1 week of their sex ed, they learned how to put a condom on something. And she was 12. And another one, they learned every name for a penis. And in another one, they learned about pornography. And, so I said to them, this is the talks you've had at school. So I'm going to have my talk. And they were like, oh God, no, please no. And I said, oh yeah, and I sat them down recently and I said, you are the master of your domain, and this is your domain. And you are the frickin' queen of your own castle. And do not allow a king anywhere near your castle unless he treats you like a goddamn queen. And that is the talk that I think we need to be having more often. Not going for what you think you can get, which is what we do as teenagers, but going for what you want. And if you don't want it, be okay with not having it. And, if we started teaching this, it would be a whole different world out there. And I've just had this beautiful friend Ness staying with me, and she literally had, this wonderful talk with my girls about how she waited. She didn't give it away. She waited until she was with someone that she really loved, and she was much older than everyone else. And she really, she held on to her domain rather than this almost desperate desire to get rid of it as quickly as possible, as though your virginity is some kind of venereal disease and you need an antibiotic to get rid of it so that you fit in with your peers. And imagine if we all did that.
But you should, and I agree. And it's like, we can teach our girls, and I think that's a beautiful talk you gave your girls. I mean, it even just resonating with me, and it made my heart swell, made me clap, made me want to cheer. And I totally agree. But we can tell our daughters, we can tell the next generation, whether we've got sons or daughters, we can tell them till we are blue in the face. But unless we are role modeling it, they are not going to listen to shit we say. They can
Okay.
listen, but it's not going to be absorbed in the same way. And Bridget, I've been burned in relationships. You know, I've had a horrific second marriage, which was just devastating for everybody involved. Maybe not him, but everybody else that was in his wake. And that was not good role modeling from me for my children. You know, I own that, and I'm going to have to pick up the pieces for a long time to do with that. But what it's taught me is to love myself. So I will forever be grateful for that, because that's what my soul needed to do. But it's also taught me to decide what I want in a relationship. Now, relationship and sex is two different things, but together, when you have both of them, the world can be freaking amazing. And that's where I am. That's what I'm doing. I am role modeling now. Is a relationship absolutely perfect? No, there will be conflict along the way, because we are two individuals who are strong individuals who disagree. But I've also learned how to do conflict. It's one of my specialities, what I teach other people to do, how to actually have conflict and come out of it the other side without resentment, without anger, without bitterness, to actually work through something. It might just be the tiniest little thing that you're not agreeing on, but these things build up. And when they build up, that ruins your intimacy, because anger gets in the way of intimacy. So now I am as this strong woman, role modeling what a beautiful relationship is. I don't know if my relationship's forever. I hope it will be. But it's like, we have the best friendship. We talk. It hasn't all been plain sailing. But I'm going to role model what a great relationship is now. And if it's too late for my kids, maybe it is, because they've seen stuff in their early days, but I really hope not. I hope they never settle, but I'll continue to role model. So when I do speak to them about their relationships, I'm coming from a place of absolute congruency, absolute authenticity. When I say, please don't settle, gorgeous, or please don't do that. You know, I've got 3 boys and a daughter, and I want my boys to be the kings, and I want my daughter to be the queen. In both of their relationships. You know, you respect women, and Brooke, you respect yourself, you know, and you don't settle for anything less, because there's so many people running around on this planet accepting scraps of love. And why are they accepting scraps of love? Because that's how they feel about themselves.
That's what's been modeled to them.
And it's so true. I mean, we are our children's biggest mentors. We will lead them in well, they're watching us. They're the biggest sponges, like, but I think as well in relationships, and I guess, I mean, I get all of that, and I do have fear, and I do have fear around getting in this uncomfortable zone, because I haven't been there for a long time. And, you know, I mean, where do you even meet people now at my age, kind of thing? But as well, aside from that, I also feel I don't, I mean, I'd love that in my life, to expand my life, to complement in what I want. And I would love that intimacy, you know, somebody that's really looking out for me, somebody that does have my back, because I've had my back for so long, and I've called myself mad. Or I haven't called myself mad, actually, my daughter has, because I've been mum and dad and cray cray at the same time, you know. So it's been like, but that's part of our evolution. And when I speak about that, you know, in relationships, a lot of people aren't at that evolved level where they've got these expectations of you. And I want to be in a relationship where I'm free. You know, I want to be free. I want to be me. And I don't want to have to be, I don't know, you know, fitting into, like you say, to somebody's mold, or to accept certain things if they don't sit right. And I just think we expect a lot from each other through relationships. So this is a really interesting one, right? Because I've been like 15 years almost on my own, and I give so well to myself, and I just couldn't imagine how somebody else can give to me in the ways that I do.
But that's
And
the whole point. When you're in, if it's a joint relationship, both of you are truly free.
Yeah.
And that is the most beautiful thing about relationship, because how many people in a relationship are trying to change the other person? It will never work. It never works. But so many people are trying to change the other person. Hear it day in, day out with clients. I know it's not going to work, honey. But when you come together as an evolved person, and usually will be one who's more evolved than the other, or you might be more evolved in one area of your life and the other person's more evolved in other. But if you can come together as two mature people with intentions of knowing what you want from a relationship, also write that shit down. I wanted friendship, loyalty, support, respect, fun, adventure, as I say, conflict resolution. Can't say that word either.
I've got pages of love.
Yeah, but you know what? But go into it intentionally. Decide what your
My
non-negotiables
king's
are.
in here.
Yes, he is. He's there. But decide what your non-negotiables are. Decide where your boundaries are, and believe. And it's about never settling, always being truly authentic. But you can't be truly authentic, as you said earlier, Mel, until you know who you are as well, and I know you went through the ecstasy stage, so you got that extra layer of feeling how amazing you are and how great that euphoric feeling is when, it's called the love drug, so it produces love.
It de-armors the heart.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the biggest mistakes that we seem to have from fairy tales growing up is that when you find your prince, it's just happily ever after. And therefore, if you have all this conflict, he's not the right one. And so, really a relationship is always a mirror reflection of where we are at in our own development, right? So if we've got a narcissist, then we are probably stuck in a codependent sort of growth pattern. And if we are, strong with healthy boundaries and able to give and receive, because the problem with most women, see, this is how I've seen it recently. The world has been back to front for a really long time. And this came through in a client session recently. Women are receivers and men are givers, right? And so the man stands with his hand on your back and he propels you forward with all of his power and his pride, and he's a provider and he's a protector and he honors you deeply. And then the woman can hold up the world with love and compassion, right? So the man gives, the woman receives. But instead, we've been trapped in this pattern of the woman giving and the men receiving. And the men have been receiving, and the women have been giving, and trying to hold up the world with loving kindness and compassion. And that's simply, it's just been around the wrong way. And when we have it round the correct way, and you will see more and more relationships like this coming to pass because of the evolution of the planet, and the younger ones are coming through with completely different codes. Amen. Thank you. You will see more of these men supporting their women in this beautiful way, because like you said, Jo, when you feel emotionally supported, when you feel that your partner has your back, when you feel loved, even in a crowded room, then you are able to give everything, right? And like you said, it doesn't matter if it's 2 women, 2 men, you still must feel this from your partner. Like, however the dynamics work in whatever the relationship is, you must feel that emotional support from your partner. You must feel that they have your back. And so when you feel like that, you are able to be your fullest, most complete self. And that is when you come into a beautiful harmonic balance. But you will have conflict even then. And you will be tested even then, because life happens.
Mm.
People die, people lose jobs. You know, there are toxic surrounding family. There are huge problems, you know, with peers at school. There's so many things that will throw us off kilter. So the stronger you are, like you say, Jo, I actually agree with that. You first, then your partner, then the kids. Because when you are a pinnacle of strength for your children, you're
Mm.
not only a great role model, but they feel really, really safe.
Mm.
And when the kids feel safe, you're happy.
Yeah.
Like it's a symbiotic relationship. All we need to be happy is for our kids to be happy. And for our kids to be happy, they need to feel safe
Yeah.
and loved and protected,
And
right?
you're talking about the topsy-turviness of the woman always giving and the man receiving. And I totally agree with that. And it's not men's fault and it's not women's fault. It's just how it's gone along the years, over the decades, over the centuries. It's all changed. Women used to be revered. And it's about time we got back to being revered. But equally, it's off kilter in families because often mothers, you know, we're all mothers. We know we've probably done it ourselves. We've given everything to our children. And that's why I do the 1, 2, 3 method with people, because it's very easy to remember. 1, you love yourself. 2, you love your partner. 3, you love your children. It doesn't mean your children have less love than what you give yourself or your partner. It just means, as you said, if you're in that stable space where you are fully authentic, loving you, radical self-acceptance, then you have that beautiful harmonic relationship with your partner, which goes through its ups and downs, but you work together as a team. So I said to my partner, I will fight the world with you hand in hand. I will never fight you. We can have conflict, but we will sort it out. I am not fighting against you. So we do things together hand in hand, and then our children are safe, as you said, because there's this safe container. There's not all this explosive shit in the house. There's not us not talking to each other or somebody walking off. There's not that. Nobody has to walk on eggshells in this house. If there's a problem, we're going to talk about it and we're going to sit down and we're going to deal with it. So yeah, 1, 2, 3. And then we talked earlier as well, before we came on air, about a relationship. You know, some people are in relationships, but they're not really in it, are they? They're not really fully in the relationship. And I think that's where this whole word monogamy gets a bit distorted, because there is people sleeping around, there's people having affairs, or there's people just not really interested in their partner, but they're with their partner, the partner's not having their needs met. And why is that? Mainly because people are not fully invested in the relationship due to many things, but one of them will be fear. If I invest all of this into the relationship and I get hurt, or if I invest everything in, and something happens, what have I got left? What have you not got left? If you don't invest fully in, why are you bothering being there at all? If you're not fully in and you're both wanting something, which should be a freaking awesome, great life, because we're here for a short time. You know, if you're both not working towards that, why bother?
Oh, yeah. If I work with a couple, the first thing I ever ask them is, do you both really want this? Because if you don't, if one of you is only half here today, we might as well just close down and finish off.
Yeah.
Because
And another,
I'm not going to work with you unless you both really, really want to make this work.
yeah, I totally agree. And I always say to clients, do you truly love each other as well? Like, do you properly? Because there's a lot of people who actually sometimes dislike their partner, or they're not, or they never even actually fully love them at the
In
beginning.
a
They knew
long-term
that.
relationship, you may go through that.
Of course you do.
And
You
it's
go through bits
perfectly
and bobs,
normal to go
but
through a period of
do
time
you have
we
that?
don't like each other, or
Yeah.
we fight, and that's the growth pattern, right? So in those periods, you either split, or you
Work through it.
continue in a very unhealthy way, or you grow together into something and evolve into something deeper.
And that's what a relationship should be. It should be expansive. We should be getting into that uncomfortable zone every now and again, because we wouldn't evolve and expand each other's worlds without it. I so get what you're talking about, but I guess it's just, yeah, coming into my realm is like, this is interesting, actually, because there's been a few things that have come up around relationships for me lately, particularly past relationships and how that's affected my girl and where she's at in her life now. And, we've always found ways through and found different perspectives, but it's so good, being able to get other people's perspectives, particularly wahine, other women's perspectives. And to be honest, not a lot of my best girlfriends have children. So
Interesting.
this is another interesting, yeah, but I've got quite a few male friends who have been role models for Kate, who have been there, but no, it's not like, so it's interesting.
I believe we're here for love and connection, and that can come in different forms. I was watching Sex and the City the other day, and it's like, should we be each other's soulmates, and the men can just be there, these great guys to have great times with, and that can be the case sometimes. I'm certainly not bullying you into going and have a relationship, Bridget. This is
Oh, no.
you, but I
Yeah.
do like to challenge people when they say, "Oh, I'm happy on my own," or I like to challenge people in relationships when they say, either way. I like to do the challenging, but we are here for love and connection. And I think relationships have been distorted. Relationships have been mediocre. Relationships, even look at the movies, it's either a silly love story or it's based on drama. And either way, that's not really true life. There might be little bits of elements which you can relate to, but relationships are so much more than that. They're so deep, much deeper than that. And they're so much more enriching if we allow that to happen. But we only allow that to happen when we are prepared to live in full vulnerability.
And heal the wounds.
Mm.
There's so many wounds, and I will admit I have wounds that I haven't fully. I mean, it's not that I haven't healed from those wounds, but I haven't fully gone into, that realm to bring that forth, if you like. It's not been my priority.
Yeah.
Like, my priority has been me and my girl because I haven't had that relationship. So this has been the relationship. And it's not been unhealthy, but I think that it's been it could be more expansive with that energy here. And I'm not distilling the male energy or diluting it in any way, but I think a lot of that energy has been hurt and wounded, and a lot of that comes through in the relationships now. And this is deep. When we go back, many centuries actually to the beginning, and I was talking about this to somebody yesterday. The feminine energy was so wounded and has been. We've been hunted for years. We're the portal of life. You go right back to the witch hunts, to all of these sort of hunts around that female energy, because we have such a deep connection with the cosmos, with nature. And we've had that wound, and that has actually emanated out into wounding the masculine as well and creating this huge confusion. And in my era, we were taught that we give so much and love so much outside of ourselves. And within this era now, the children or the kids coming through this generation have been taught so much about loving oneself and not so much it's a real imbalance about the nature, because they're so disconnected from this huge realm around us, and we see this disconnect everywhere, not only in our relationships with each other and the intimacy there, but the intimacy with nature, with ourselves, with the cosmos and who we are. And so on so many levels, and the feminine and the masculine. And I guess as well, for me, I've brought a lot of masculine level, energy through, because I've had to be able to parent my daughter in a good, balanced way, but to be a friend as well. And yeah.
Ladies, I think we should do a whole other one on the feminine and masculine, because that's always been, it's so interesting. And, you know, even earlier before, Mel, when you said the women and the men giving and the taking, when you actually think of a harmonious relationship, if the man gives and has his hand on the woman's back and so she can rise and be in pure flow, that's how we want it to be. But also that would tip sometimes. So it's sometimes the woman would be the one with most of the male energy while the man needs the support. But it has to be able to go back and forth, not just one way. And I think that's, you know, I think it's important for people to understand that we're not expecting men just to give to us women, and us, we just take. That's not what we're expecting. But it passes to and fro. But all that I can say is, if the men are willing to do their work and to heal their wounds, if the women are prepared to heal and do their wounds, then together they come together like this. And sometimes it has to go the other way round, but they come together like this. And that relationship is then based on such beauty and such divinity. It's so beautiful when that can happen. And as you say, Mel, it is happening more and more with this younger generation. But that's where I think that's where the ideal is. I think that would be my ideal, to have this kind of relationship where we embrace each other and we are there, and then both parties shine. If my king comes home and treats me like a queen, well, I treat him like a king, and my God, does he
That's what I
benefit?
mean. That's what I mean.
Yeah,
When you
totally.
are treated like a queen, your compassion and divinity flow back to him naturally. So that's why it is a symbiotic thing, but it needs to start that way because it's been inverted for so long. And when we feel emotionally supported, this is in relationship. It doesn't mean you can't feel like this if you're not in a relationship. Like, we need to be clear about that. But when you are in a relationship, you need to feel emotionally supported, and you need to feel that hand on your back. And then you have this explosive heart energy, which is like a conductor in the world, and that does flow symbiotically to your partner, so that they can also be vulnerable with you. That's just automatically given. Yeah.
I like the way you describe it. You use beautiful words and just beautiful. I just love it. So, ladies, because obviously we've talked about relationships and monogamy, and, you know, some people are for it, some people against it. That's fine. But I think any relationship, whether we're talking about with a lover, with a friend, with a family member, you know, there's many relationships on many scales, but to have the healthiest, most beautiful relationships, I personally think it starts with self. We talked about the 1, 2, 3, you know, with you one and the second person is whichever the relationship, whatever it is. So what would be your tip for people watching or listening to get themselves into the best position to have the best relationships?
I think communication, learning how to have a voice. And I think that one of the biggest problems that we have is that women don't know how to state their needs. They have this expectation that their partner should just get it. And this is probably like one of the biggest breakdowns in all relationships, right?
I've done that myself. I personally have done that. I don't do it anymore, but yeah.
It's all been there, right? But to be able to stand up and say, my needs are not being met, these are my needs. And your partner usually really appreciates that, because mostly we're not walking around trying to psychically tap into our partner's needs. We actually really appreciate being told what they are. And then we get to understand our partner so much better. And so I always feel, and when you watch the breakdown of relationships, you will always find that it starts with a breakdown of communication.
Yes.
So people end up sort of compromising themselves in all sorts of ways in relationships because they have been unable to stand up and literally state their needs. And so I think communication, learning the tools of communication, learning how to stand in your truth, have your voice, and really communicate that to everyone in your life is probably the best way forward in any relationship.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm just going to backpedal a little bit on that, because this is one of the things I teach literally all the time. I say teach, guide, or help people bring it out within themselves. And first and foremost, it's being able to communicate with self, because a lot of people don't really even know what their own needs are, or they're not willing to admit they have needs, because we've had that thing shown to us that, oh, you're too needy. Well, there's a big difference between being needy and having needs, and we're usually needy when we don't have our needs met. So learn to communicate with self. How often do we actually sit down with ourself and say, what are my actual needs, and am I meeting them first and foremost before we ask anybody else to step up and meet them?
Yes,
Yeah.
agree completely.
Yeah, love that. I love communication. It's one of my favorite topics ever.
I just add to that because communication is all around how we're feeling, and people don't know how to recognize or identify their feelings. So how we're feeling in a moment is and that emotion coming through is not there to define us. We can, feel it and let it go. And that would be my tip, actually, to feel the love in everything, because we often take things personally and turn it into a bit of a drama and become a victim and stay in that victim space where, oh, he said that, he hurt me. And it's not, or that's not what it's about, because in a relationship, we're so, enthralled by each other that we expect, like what you've said, Melly, them to just know what we should be needing, or so really feel the love and see the beauty in everything, because love is beauty and beauty is love. And it's deeper than that, but when we can see the beauty in everything, and even the beauty in the ugly, the love in the ugly, that's huge. And yeah, you kind of got to get to that neutral space to not be stressed out, not be angst, and being a nutritionist. There's a lot of foods that throw us into these spaces too. If we're eating dead food, or if we're not, getting the right nourishment, we can't feel, it really affects our gut and the way we feel and our mood, and it can really confuse.
I read a great article called "That Filthy Mood Could Be Your Food" 25 years ago, and it changed everything for me. Yeah, totally agree.
It's not just that, it's the psychology of food. We need to do one on this, actually, because when we eat certain things, the psychology coming through that food, the energy coming through that food is what we're consuming. And, half an hour after eating that food, we can go from feeling so energized before eating that food and then feeling really flat. And imagine, if we've just eaten a chicken salad, we may have been eating the last energy of that chicken, maybe how it was slaughtered, and we're eating that energy. So we've got to really think about these things as well. And the amount of live stuff we're getting, because we're hydroelectric magnetic beings. We need this life to be able to create the life and the vitality. So really feeling into that fresh, raw, organic goodness to flow.
I
Love
love
it.
that. I love it. I think my tip would be, because we've used these words before, haven't we? We're here to be seen, heard, and cherished. So, first and foremost, see who you are. Hear everything that you need to say to yourself, and cherish yourself. And then when you are in that place where you are fully loving and accepting yourself, and forgiving things that you've done, and healing your wounds, then that becomes your superpower. You're happy to go into a relationship being vulnerable, because you're okay on your own. You don't need a person. You're going to be with a person because you'd like to be in a relationship. But if you know who you are, what you need, And if you're happy to listen to your own self, you know, even if it's the crazy thoughts that go round in our head from time to time, but just still be compassionate and kind and loving and cherish yourself regardless. Because isn't that what we want from a partner? When we go in and we want to be able to say our crazy thoughts out loud, we don't want to be judged by our partner. We don't want to be not heard or not seen, and we still want them to cherish us. What we'd love if when we're having our mad moment and going blah, 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 what would we really love? For me personally, I want to be enveloped in a big hug and just told I'm loved regardless. So give that to oneself first, know how it feels, and you won't settle for anything less.
Beautiful. Thanks, girls.
Oh, I love you girls, and relationships, monogamous or not.
Yep.